So, without more ado, we're going to kick off. Technology has changed. So, background to social media, technology has changed. Clearly, it has changed within farming, and it continues to change. I would say that farming and agriculture is one of the most advanced industries in terms of embracing technological change, and that is no different in terms of marketing and using communications within agriculture. And really what we're going to be talking about during this talk is how you can embrace that change, not only in agricultural practices, but certainly in communications, in networking, and of course, in terms of marketing.
Absolutely. And communications, as David says, has changed. Who here, I would like to ask, has got a smartphone? Okay, so pretty much all of you. And therefore, most of us now are far more reliant on technology than we have been in the past. But of course, to support that technology, we need an infrastructure that supports that. We need 3G, 4G mobile connectivity. We need super fast broadband. So whilst technology is changing, we recognize we need the infrastructure to support that, to enable us to communicate more effectively. Also, our advertising has changed. The traditional outposts that we use for advertising. I mean, just yesterday, when I was on the bus in from the Park and Ride, I sat next to a very nice chap called Rob Alexander, who was talking to me about social media. I said, I'm here to talk about social media. And he said to me, look, one of his colleagues had advertised using Facebook to advertise for a mechanic, and he'd had more than 40 applicants from a much broader range than he would have had he been advertising in the traditional local paper. So the way that we now advertise and market ourselves is changing quite significantly.
At the same time, networking has changed. Again, obviously you're all attending the Oxford Farming Conference now, but show of hands again, how many of you regularly attend some form of conference, events, or business networking? Absolutely. Networking face-to-face is very, very important. It always has been important, always will be important. But it's, again, how technology has adapted how that can be done. What we're going to be talking about later is the fact that you can actually network online. You can actually virtually attend conferences. We've already seen on Twitter that many people have said, it's a shame I can't attend the conference, however, I will be following the hashtag. Many of you probably think, what on earth is that? But hopefully we can enlighten you later on. But the fact is, you could virtually attend a conference anywhere in the world. And that is how networking has been changed.
And of course, customer service. I mean, customer service has been completely turned upside down. Once upon a time, if we were dissatisfied with something or we had a grievance to air, we would have to write a letter and wait days, maybe months to get a response, if indeed we got a response. Now people can then talk to brands and businesses about anything, and they expect a response. Minutes is sometimes too long to response. So for organizations that are customer-facing, because of these technologies, they are having to think about how they embrace and how they engage with their audiences using new technologies.
And of course, socializing. These were, after all, invented as social networks, and really they were invented as a way for friends to talk to each other, but at the same time it means that anyone can talk to each other. And certainly in terms of farming, what we've found out that there are a huge amount of communities, online communities on farming, which mirror the farming communities themselves. There are many, many online forums, and of course it's a great way of connecting with people in farming and people around the world who have something to do with farming in a very, very simple way. And of course, you can combine face-to-face socializing with online socializing. So again, and this isn't a trick question, how many people here are tweeting while I'm talking? It's fine. That's absolutely fine, but that is the modern world. That is the modern world. People are engaging, they are socializing. People are spreading the message about this speech as we are speaking it. Alas, I am a man, therefore I cannot speak and tweet at the same time. I'll leave that to Michelle, who probably can. But of course, you also have things like Google Hangouts. And a Google Hangout is where you can actually get a group of people into a room, metaphorically. So again, it's about bringing people together, it's about inspiring, and it's about being in a community.
And this event is a perfect example, as David was saying, the hashtag. So a hashtag, by using something like Twitter or Facebook or Google+, you can use the hashtag. And this event, when this event started to be marketed to all of you who are here, you would have seen that this event was promoted using this hashtag OFC14. And the interesting thing about the technologies is that before the event even happened, there was noise, there was conversation happening around the event. There is now conversation happening during the event. People are talking, tweeting over the days around the event and connecting. And post this event, there will be conversation around the event about what the speakers have thought about, what people are saying. In fact, we've just bumped into somebody who's been talking to us for days about coming to this conference, Manor Park BB, and indeed he has a hashtag. Hashtag Club Hector, which is a group of over 300 farmers that regularly converse around a hashtag. So that's bringing a collective that aren't necessarily on each other's doorsteps together to discuss common issues. So this event is a perfect, this is social media in reality. So what we're going to talk about today during the conference is what is social media. We'll uncover demystify social media, because it really is very simple. It's about communicating. It's about doing what we've always done, but leveraging that through technologies, amplifying the reach of our communications. We're going to look at some statistics, and the statistics are significant. They are significant. We're looking at what makes it different. What makes it different to our traditional marketing methods? Marketing yourselves, as Mr. Pace was talking about last night at the dinner, marketing is an issue for any business. For any business, you've got your products, but you need to get your products to market, and marketing matters. So we're going to look at traditional marketing methods and how social media kind of plugs into your traditional activity and helps you to amplify that reach and touch audiences that you want to target. We'll look at basically how it affects you. We'll go through some examples of people in your industry and how they are using these social technologies to connect and leverage what it is they'll do. We'll look at some myths and uncover some do's and don'ts. There was some interesting conversation about, we hope that the guys that are delivering on social media help to put right about people just talking on Twitter aimlessly about noise, things that aren't relevant. And that's a really important factor. We all should be planning what we're talking about. Plan, listen, analyze before we dive in and engage. And unfortunately, most of the organizations David and I meet and speak with have dived in. They're in there, they're engaging, but they're not really clear on why they're engaging or what they're doing. And that is something that we're going to talk about in more detail.
Technology, though, is moving so fast. It's moving very fast in agriculture. It's moving very fast in many other areas, and no more so than in social media. One of my family, I try to describe to them what I do as a job. I have a family teacher, and I said it's like being a teacher where the syllabus changes every week, but they don't tell you, and at the end of the term, you have to actually pass all the pupils within your class. And it really is like that. It's moving so fast, and it's about trying, obviously, to keep up with it. Another interesting thing there, he talked about black spots. I'm sure, again, it's something which Michelle has touched on, the problem of infrastructure. And it's all very well talking about having a wonderfully mobile-enabled economy, but in many rural areas, there are still problems in trying to get any form of internet access, whether it's static or mobile. And of course, the final thing I'd say is that Ronnie Corbett himself, by appearing in that and being on video, he is moving with the times. And therefore, it doesn't matter who you are and what you do. Within your business, you've got to be evolving your business and moving with the times. what is social media then? Break it down into the two sections. Social, you've got the social element of it. Virtually all of you have said you have a smartphone. If you have a smartphone, effectively, you are all editors, publishers, broadcasters. That's really quite a seismic shift. No more do you have to rely on a third party to promote you or your products or your services. Now you can do it yourself. And it can be done very simply. There will be people, perhaps in the audience, who are videoing us now, who are taking pictures now, tweeting now, writing a blog now. It can be done. But on the flip side of that, I mean, that means that it's great that we have this power, but if we are all editors, publishers, and broadcasters, then there is an emphasis on us coming up with content which people are actually going to be interested in. If you are the editor of Farmers Weekly, if you are the editor of Tatler, if you are the producer of Newsnight, you need to come up with content for your program and your magazine which people are naturally going to be interested in. So these channels, these social media channels, are no different. And it's all very well saying, yes, it's very easy to set up a LinkedIn company profile. It's easy to set up Twitter. But what are you going to put onto that channel that anyone is going to be interested in? And the final thing I would certainly say about this whole idea about social media is this mobile-enabled social media. In 2014, more people will access the internet from mobile devices than from computers. With mobile devices, smartphones, tablets, it's not a case of being on social media. I'm going on to social media. The fact is you are in social media. People are in it. If Michelle and I are anywhere where there is internet access and someone tweets us or mentions us on Facebook or says a comment on LinkedIn, we will know about it. It's about this always-on society. And clearly there are some pitfalls in that. In that if you're giving everyone the voice, that means there will be dissenting voices. And those dissenting voices also have a metaphorical soapbox. So therefore, the challenge is, how do you deal with that? And so that is this massively changed society we're in, where we're always on, where anyone can say anything at any time from any place.
Absolutely. And so some statistics within the UK. So we have 24 million people accessing Facebook in the UK every day. That's every day. I think there are 32 million live accounts in the UK, but 24 million people access Facebook every day. For many of them, it's the first thing they do. You know, they get up in the mornings and they look at Facebook to see what's going on in their lives, their window to the world. And most of them, 83%, are accessing through mobile devices. So this ties in with the stat that the majority of us will be accessing the internet through our mobiles rather than traditional desktops. 43% of businesses are using social media in some form. And there are a number of businesses within this industry that are using social very progressively. When we were doing the research for this conference, you know, it was quite surprising in many ways to see just how the adoption level is really quite high by many in this industry. 50 million users in the UK on Twitter. Interestingly, with Twitter, 40% of people who are on Twitter don't actually tweet. They just use Twitter as a major news feed. And they do that because news breaks on Twitter. Often, you get the information from Twitter far faster than you get it from the news resources. So people are on Twitter because they are looking, not necessarily to tweet themselves and share, but they are listening in to the influencers and the news feeds that they want to listen into, that they want to tune into. There are 11 million of us in the UK on LinkedIn. And the difference between LinkedIn is that, you know, people might go to Facebook or Twitter to talk to their friends or collaborate with their friends. People don't go onto LinkedIn to play games, you know, or play Farmville. They go onto LinkedIn to do business. So there's 11 million people seriously looking to connect and collaborate on LinkedIn. And it's a useful networking resource if you approach it strategically and use it in that way. It's not a glorified CV portal. It's somewhere where you should go to really think about your online persona. And 36% of consumers, of course, use social media to interact with brands. And how many of you here, if you are searching for a product or service, how many of us Google it? Yeah, quite a lot of us. And that is commonplace. And of course, on Google, not only will you find general search results, but you will find Twitter results, LinkedIn results, blog posts. You will find content that is driven through social networks. And importantly, 86% of content viewed online will soon be video. It's already 82%, and it's been growing and growing and growing year on year. And if you think about it, it makes sense because we're very visual creatures. It's much simpler to watch a 1-minute video on how to put together or watch a demonstration or some instructional video or to find out about an organization than it is to read tomes and tomes of written text online on a website. So people use video, and it's a growing media, and we'll be looking at some examples of video throughout the day. Throughout this session. Picking
up on that, it's a sad truth. There's a very good reason why people watch video is because they can't be bothered to read anymore. Yeah. And unfortunately, that is the nature of society, is that things are fast moving so much that people don't have time to read, they just want to watch. Just looking at social media users by age, and interesting thing for me is that it's going across the boards now. There are probably as many people in their 70s and 80s and 90s on social networks as there are in their teens, in their early teens now. And the fact is, it's a maturing sector. How many people here are on LinkedIn out of interest? So again, I don't imagine any of you are teenagers, but it's clearly a maturing sector. And the fact is that it's a sector which is growing, and people are adapting to it in exactly the same way as we adapted to the internet, as we adapted to computers, as we adapted to email, etc. It's about adapting, and it's about the fact that the next generation, the next thought leaders will all be using these sites very, very naturally.
And what makes social different? So traditional media is still very important. Our traditional media that we've been used for marketing our businesses, TV, radio, direct mail, email marketing, telesales, door drops, seminars, webinars, events, they all matter. You know, they are the traditional marketing methods that still matter. But the interesting thing about traditional marketing activity is it's very linear. It's driven by the business or the brand, and it's pushed out into the consumer audience, whether that consumer audience wants to consume it or not. So it's a very linear, I am the brand, I am the organization, and I'm going to share what I want you to know. And that has been what we've been used to for years and years and years. And the interesting thing about that is that consumers don't trust. Ask a consumer, do you trust the advertising from brands? It's 14% of consumers trust advertising. When you ask consumers, do you trust peer recommendation and advocacy? 78% trust peer recommendation and advocacy. And the interesting thing about social networks is that that is where you can earn attention. In social networks, it isn't this linear, I'm the brand pushing out my message. I mean, brands do that in social, and they're not using social to its full advantage. It's not just about pushing out your message. It's actually about conversing. And conversing is a two-way activity. It isn't just about talking, it's also about listening. And listening is really important on social. And you can listen and you can tune in and you can start that conversation and you can have a conversation. And the important thing is that you are then sharing information in a conversational way that earns attention. You're not buying attention, which is what we've traditionally done through advertising. You're not begging attention, which is what we've traditionally done through the media and through PR. And indeed, you're not bugging people. You know, you're not doing that telesales, pushing direct mail, push marketing all the time. Instead, you are having conversations, networked conversations that people are having around a topic, a subject, your business, your brand, your sector, and you are joining that conversation and you are sharing insight, educating, intelligence, be giving people something that is purposeful, something that is useful, educational, even entertaining, so that they are compelled to want to join your conversation or share what it is that you are talking about. So you are actually earning that attention. And I've got a question. How many of you here actually do share content regularly via a blog? Anybody blogging? You know, not so many hands. And this is about, you know, one of the things we were talking about yesterday over dinner with a number of people is about the education piece. How are you sharing? How are you talking about what it is that you do regularly? And blogging and social channels enable you to do that in an informed and strategic way.
So, picking up on what Michelle's just said, how does social media affect you in this room? So when putting this presentation together, we wanted to make sure that we came up with examples of social media which applied to each and every one of you. Social media is not a one-trick pony. You don't just use it for one thing. You can use it for a multitude of different uses. And what we want to make sure is that each of you can come away today thinking, yes, I could use that for my particular business. So we've come up with 10 different ways. There are probably many more, but we've come up with 10 different ways which we think that people within farming could be using social media. Brand awareness and establishment, networking as an information resource, gathering support for a cause, marketing, customer support, brand monitoring, product promotion, insight, business intelligence, and public relations. Now, I'm not saying each of you must use all of them, but it's inconceivable now in the modern age that any business can in some way not use social media to further their business and their business objectives. So, we're going to quickly turn to each one of these. So, looking first at brand awareness. So this is a farm shop. A couple of farm shops using Twitter and using Facebook. It's about brand outposts. What does that mean? Most of you will have a website, but a website is not necessarily enough because it may well be that your customers, your clients, your stakeholders may not access websites. They may be accessing social sites. So the simple message here is fish where the fish are. If your customers are all on Facebook, then why not have a brand presence on Facebook? Similarly with networking. Now with networking, you can be networking at any time, at any place, as we've heard. So we've got AgriChat. So AgriChat, they have a Twitter chat every Thursday. It's a chance to network in a metaphorical sense. And you could be networking with people all around the world. You could be having Google Hangouts. And it's really networking with people who are applicable to your business. Very often, Michelle and I get complaints from people on social media. They're saying there's too much noise. There's too many people blethering about rubbish. But the simple thing is, you do not network with those people. You do not follow those people. It could be that if you're networking, you may decide that you only want to be connected to 10 thought leaders within your specific field. Because they're thought leaders, they're not going to be blethering a load of rubbish about cheese sandwiches and having hangovers. What they're going to be doing is talking about things which affect you, which you are interested in. Pardon the pun on my name, but it is about tailoring social media to your specific business. as an information resource, Farmers Weekly are on Twitter. Many publications are on Twitter. And many people, as we've heard, don't actually tweet. They've got nothing to say, or they don't want to say anything for fear of getting into trouble. But at the same token, you can be using these sites as a great information resource. So Twitter, you could be using it as a news feed. So once a day, you could quickly look at Twitter. You may be only following 10 or 20 people who are important to your business, and you get your information from that. Similarly with LinkedIn, LinkedIn News. Within your LinkedIn, if you're following companies, you're following individuals who have something important to say, you get your news. So in the same way as Michelle said that many people, the first thing they do in the morning is look at your Facebook, it could be, in terms of business, that you're looking at a Twitter feed, you're looking at LinkedIn, getting the information you need in a very, very quick way, quickly scan through it, update your knowledge, move on. It's not necessarily about having to tweet and write stuff on a regular basis.
And gathering support for a cause. You know, here's a Facebook page from the Royal Association of British Dairy Farmers. And here they are and sharing insights and discussions around issues impacting, you know, this particular area. And people are leveraging social and Facebook to bring awareness and insight around issues and get support for various causes, for people to back causes. It's interesting that I know tonight you've got the debate about the fuel or feud debate, and there is a debate online on Facebook on the Enough Food If page. I think there are 36,000 people that like that page, and there's lots of discussion around that very same topic. So whilst here in a live networking scenario, there are people going to be debating about that, online in a social networking scenario, that debate is happening as well. And so anybody, organisations across the board are using social to gather support for a cause. Marketing their businesses. And here's a great illustration of class using video, and we can't show the video, it's not here, but showcasing their products and videos around their products. And the interesting thing is, this isn't just about them saying, oh, look at our products, aren't they amazing? What they've got on their YouTube channel, which is effectively like their TV channel, when you go on there, there's lots of videos about all sorts of different things, is they've got their real-life customers sharing their views about the product. And that is far more powerful, because as I went back, only 14% of us would trust what Class is saying about their product, because, of course, they're the brand, they're the business. Of course they're going to say that their products are marvelous. But when you get advocacy, when you get people that, you know, are your peers showcasing and talking about how they think that product is great, that's when it becomes much more powerful, because we trust what our peers say far more than we trust what the brands and businesses say. So from a marketing perspective, you can have your own YouTube channel, getting customers to talk. You can have social outposts, as David said. Not only do you have your website, but your website has many inroads. People find your website by many ways, and they can find your website, they can find your core products or services or the information that you want to share, not just via your website, which is usually quite a static portal, but through the social networks that you associate to your website. So through Twitter, through Facebook, through Google+, through Pinterest. There are numbers of them, and you can choose which channels are relevant for you, and you can have them directing people to where you want them to go to. So from a marketing perspective, it really joins up. It helps you to integrate your marketing activity. And of course, customer support. Here we have the Winstay Group, and you will see here, I don't know if you can see the conversations that they're actually having, but somebody's talking about going directly to the Winstay Group, talking about they've had a flat battery after 32 cows. You know, so here is, you know, customer service happening on Twitter. People going directly to Twitter, and they expect to get a result. They expect to get a response. There was an article in the Times just last Sunday where they were talking about customer service and Twitter, and 80% of those consumers that make a customer service call to a Twitter account online expect to get a response within the hour. You know, so our customer expectation is quite high with social. And here you can see this happening in live. The key thing is if you are customer facing and you are going to use social as a means for managing customer service, you have to be listening, because hours, days is too long to respond. You know, people expect to get an immediate response. And if you're on there, you can't just be paying lip service to the channels. You actually have to be manning these channels and listening and responding, having those conversations. And brand monitoring. Here we have lots of instances of people talking in a very positive way about Fullwood Dairy. And they're talking very positively. Now, the interesting thing here is that if Fullwood Dairy weren't tracking their name online, they'd never know that these conversations were happening. And whether you are online, whether you are on social or not, people can still have conversations about you and your business online. And I would say to everybody, I mean, does anybody do any brand tracking? Does anybody set any alerts on their names? You know, just one or two. And there is a really simple resource on Google called Google Alerts. Go to Google, type in Google Alerts, and effectively, for free, you can type in any words that you want. I have them on my name, my organization's name, on my clients' names. So when anybody ever mentions them online, through the social networks or on Google or anything that gets digitally indexed online, I get an email with all of that information showcasing to me. And you can set how frequently you want to receive that information. But you can simply monitor and track mentions about your organization, your competitors, anything you want to track online for free. And you know, if you should be tracking your own business. You should be listening out for what's being said, because good or bad, if people are talking about me, I want to know about it, because when I'm informed, I can do something about it. I can respond. I can learn. I can take that on board. So simple tools. There are sophisticated tools, but just start with the simple tools if you're not doing anything at the moment.
The interesting thing here is that Fullwood aren't on Twitter. And often the argument is, oh, we don't want to go on these sites because people will say stuff about us. But they're saying stuff about you anyway. So if you're not aware of it, then you're going to come unstuck. So it's really worth monitoring. Product promotion. There is a truism in social media, which is that you don't sell directly, you create the conditions whereby people naturally want to do business with you. With social media, rather than saying, buy this wonderful tractor because it's brilliant, it's about talking about issues relating to tractors, talking about issues relating to maintenance, talking about issues relating to longevity, etc. And therefore, yes, you can use it to promote products. There is an 80-20 rule which suggests that you don't want to be promoting all the time. So if you're 80% of the time, dare I say it, edutaining people, which sounds a bit horrible word, but it's quite clever, it's a mixture of education and entertainment. But by doing that, you're building your brand values and effectively you are promoting that product. But what you're not doing is saying, buy this product, it's great. Who says? It's about creating the conditions where people would naturally want to buy that product. Insight and business intelligence. Now, again, we heard yesterday about the fact that we are in a truly global economy, and there's a huge amount of information. We've got new consumers, and those consumers are going to be wanting new products, so they're going to be aware in much more of a way than they were before. And therefore, with insight and business intelligence, you can get that from the social channels. And in fact, as Michelle just said, there are some sophisticated monitoring tools now. Some of those monitoring tools aren't monitoring your brand, but they're monitoring what people are saying online I've seen some fantastic software where basically if you wanted to find people who are bloggers who are blogging about food or blogging about dairy or blogging about agriculture in general, you can find them. And you can actually find who they are, what they're saying. You can find out what the consumer is saying. So again, the consumer is going to be buying these products. Social media is an amazing resource which will help you find out exactly what people are thinking, what they're saying, what do they want. And with trends, clearly when you can see a trend on something like Twitter, that's when there's a lot of people talking about that specific issue. So again, something like Twitter and LinkedIn can be used as a very, very useful business intelligence resource. Again, what you're not doing is you're not just tweeting and updating LinkedIn all the time. It's about using it as a business intelligence resource. Public relations. Every single journalist that I know of in the country is on Twitter, apart from one lady who reviewed our book, who said she couldn't see it at all. But every journalist worth their salt is on Twitter. Every publication worth their salt is on Twitter. It is a forum. It is changed public relations. My background was public relations. Public relations has moved from when you phoned up the journalists or sent them press releases or emailed them press releases into where you actually try and form a relationship with those journalists online, on something like Twitter, on something like Google Plus or LinkedIn. And it's a forum whereby which you can actually promote what you're doing. You can reach out to the journalists can reach out to you, and therefore it is the new public relations. So again, I would say, how many of you here are using social media for public relations currently?
Not many.
It is evolved. Like all these things, it's doing what we've always done in a traditional way. The only difference is that technology has changed the way you do it. But the principles are still the same. The principles of public relations are still the same. But, as I said earlier, you fish where the fish are. If the journalists are all on Twitter, then you need to be on Twitter. You need to be active on Twitter, and you need to be visible on Twitter. And finally, I said there were 10, but there is an 11th. It is the socializing aspect. Socializing is really, really important still within the farming community. You are a community. People want to reach out. Farming in some ways can be a very, very lonely profession. And this is a great way of bringing farmers together to be able to communicate with each other in a very, very easy manner. And I'm not saying for a second that you don't stop going down the pub and chatting to your friends in the pub, although many pubs are closing, which is pretty sad. But if they are still open, it is still important to do that. But if you don't have the wherewithal to do that, or if you're too isolated, then social media is a great way of bringing farmers together. And really, just to echo sort of the words here, we want the conference and our wider activities to engage with the younger generation, to give them ideas, contacts, and information to help them rise to the challenges our industry is facing. Social media can help do that. And again, echoing the words of Jim Pace MP yesterday, farming is global. And social media makes being connected to people globally a reality. It is possible for a farmer in Wales to communicate with a farmer in New Zealand very, very simply and share ideas and share best practices.
Okay, so we're nearly at the end of here now. So just some myths before we wrap up. Social media is free. And I would say for now, yes, most of the channels that you can set up, Twitter is free to set up, LinkedIn is free to set up, Google Plus is free to set up, Pinterest is free to set up. Setting them up isn't the issue. You know, that's quite a simple process. But what you really have to think about is the resource that is needed to man these channels effectively. because, you know, I would ask the question of those of you that are on Twitter, that are on Facebook, that have set up and gone into the social, how many of you did that strategically with a planned content plan, with thinking and knowing what it is that you were setting out to achieve? And when I ask that question of any audience, it usually is quite small. About, you know, people will say, yes, I'm on Twitter, yes, I'm on Facebook, yes, and this. So did you plan strategically? Did you think about what it was that you were setting out to achieve before you dived in and started engaging? And usually that is no. So you really do have to think about the resources required to do this stuff properly. Because otherwise you can be on there just burning a lot of energy, talking, tweeting, sharing, but really all you're doing is just push into more noise into a very noisy channel. The other myth is that, you know, you have to do it all. You have to be on Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, Google+, LinkedIn, YouTube. You have to have it all. You don't, you know. Test and measure, just as we don't do every other marketing activity. We're not all on radio. We're not all on TV. We're not all doing webinars, events, direct mail. You know, we do what works for us. We do what works within our time, resource, and our budgetary resources. We do what works for us. So test the channels. Play around with them, see what works for you. Social media is for kids. Well, you know, there are no kids here, and as David said, we've already been through the stats that showcase that is not the reality. Yes, of course, children, my children, you know, have adopted the social technologies and all technologies, and will continue to do so. And the next 10 years is going to be really, really interesting in that space. But all of us now have got the opportunity to adopt these channels. It's really simple. Set up the channels and great magic will happen. You know, build it and they will come. If only, because that would make my job a whole lot easier. It isn't. You know, you really have to think about the strategic focus. I love the saying by Stephen Covey, you know, a great business strategist, those that aim for nothing hit it with remarkable accuracy. So it's absolutely true. You know, start with the end in mind. Think about why you are using those channels, and therefore make sure your activity is objectively driven. You know, this isn't just about being on Twitter because I should be, or because my neighbor down the road is, and therefore I feel we should be as well. This is about you using these channels strategically for your own, to meet your own business objectives. And the final thing here, you know, you can share absolutely anything. Well, no, you can't, because I'm not interested in, as I said, the cheese sandwich that you just had, or the latest thing that, you know, evening that you've just had out, or a nice picture of your team going skiing. Really not that interested. Really not that interested. So you've got to think about, what is it? Why is my audience tuning in? What is it that they want? And to do that and to know that, you've got to listen. You've got to do your research. And the beauty about the social channels is you can listen. You can tune in. You've got lots of business intelligence at your fingertips. So just start listening a lot more. 80% should be listening, 20% should be talking.
So, how many people here who are on social media, picking up on what Michelle just said, how many people here who are on social media know exactly why they're using it? It's all about delivering on your personal business objectives. You start with the business objective. What is my business? What am I trying to achieve? It's about not going straight into engage. It's about planning. It's about listening. It's about analyzing. The engagement part should be the last part, not the first part. Otherwise, you think, I'm on this channel and I have no idea why I'm on this channel. So think about this. Plan, listen, analyze, engage, and it's aligned closely with your business objectives. If it's not, you shouldn't be doing it. So 5 takeaways.
5 takeaways. So, number 1, think about your compelling content. What have you got? What can you be sharing? What is it that your audience, your prospective audience wants to know that you can share? What is going to interest them, educate them, entertain them, get them to feel compelled that they want to share your content?
Review how you personally could be benefiting from social media. Don't do it just because the next farm or the next company is doing it. Think about how it is going to benefit you. As we've heard, it can be very time-consuming and it could potentially be costly. So don't just jump into it. Think about exactly how it's going to benefit you.
Our mantra throughout our book, and we've actually brought some books with us, not to sell, but to give away, and Julian's going to tell you how you can access those. But plan, listen, analyse before you engage. It's so critical. I mean, if you think about it, you wouldn't embark on any other activity, strategic activity, marketing activity, without doing the research, without understanding why you're doing something, without having some metrics that you can actually, something to yield. You know, we know about yield, so what's the yield going to be? What's the return on my investment for doing this? So plan, listen, analyse before you dive in. It's so important.
Do what works for you. Again, every single one of you will have different objectives and different outlook. It may well be that you just want to use LinkedIn. It may well be that you just want to have Twitter as a news feed. You do what works for you, given the resources you've got, the time you've got. So it's really thinking about what works for you. Everyone is different, and that's the great thing about social media. You use it in whatever way works for you.
And last but certainly not least, measure. You know, measure your results. You don't want to keep repeating activity or doing activity if it's not developing anything for you, if it's not giving you anything, if it's not returning anything for your investment. You know, that isn't smart business. And so really think about the deliverables. If we're going to do this, what do we expect to gain? Have some metrics so that you can strategically focus on, well, we did this, and this was the return. This is a viable thing that we need to be doing and continuing with, and we're going to plough more energy into it, therefore. So do think about the metrics. And I think, David, that's it. We're up.
Be social.
Yeah,
be social, be human, be
Thank
smart. Thank you.